All right, guys. Well, I'm really excited to have another specialist expert on board to really deep dive into a topic related to listings, related to kind of speaking to your customer avatar, and related to kicking really kick-ass listings on Amazon. I'd like to say that I'm perfect at everything, but I think one of the areas that I definitely don't consider myself an expert in is copywriting and kind of tying in this voice, this language, and kind of merging the art and science of keywords and actually speaking to customers. So I've got a good friend of mine here, Emma from Marketing by Emma. Her and her husband are honestly two of my favorite people in the Amazon space. Not only are they super knowledgeable, but they're just awesome human beings. And so in some conversation, I'm actually having some work done on some of my listings. So I want to kind of pass it over to the experts on some of mine. And in speaking with them and just getting to know them over the last 6 months, they've been gracious enough to come in and lend their expertise for an hour or so here to the course and just impart their wisdom on copywriting, specifically copywriting for Amazon listing. So Emma, it's awesome to have you here. Thanks again. I do consider you one of the foremost experts in the space of creating really good Amazon listings and kind of understanding copywriting. So excited to hear what you're going to share. I'm sure I'll learn some stuff, but I'll maybe pass it over to you and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that incredible introduction. You just made my heart very happy on a really gloomy, kind of cold day outside. You know, I think like before I even pull up my slides or anything, I think when people hear copywriting, it can have this almost immediate impact where you're like, I don't know how to do that. I'm just going to stay where I'm comfortable, right? Like, I'm going to dive into the keywords, and who really reads anyway? And it's so easy to kind of make these excuses for why it shouldn't be important. And I think a lot of times that comes from fear of not knowing how to do it, or feeling just insecure about your ability to convey yourself in the way that you need to. And hopefully when you walk away from this, you'll feel a bit more empowered to know that it's not quite as overwhelming as it should be. And if nothing else, you'll know a bunch of questions to start asking yourself and thinking about. So even if you're hiring somebody else, you have more confidence in being able to make sure that that end product is going to be one that you're really happy with. So I'm just
awesome. And thanks for wearing we actually color coordinated our outfits in advance. So we're doing the Steve Jobs like black turtleneck. So we actually didn't, but we got a good laugh out of it when we first turned the videos on.
Yeah, I couldn't believe when when I got in that I saw the shared. Okay, so let's.
Yeah, black's one of my favorite colors, so you could do no wrong wearing a black shirt.
I agree completely. It's you know, I can be a little sloppy sometimes. So if I spill tea or coffee, then nobody has to know my dirty secrets. Okay, so
awesome.
Keywords and copy, creating listings that sell. That's kind of the name of what I really want to focus on today. And I purposely choose keywords and copy together because they really are two essential pieces of the puzzle when you're thinking about really anything that you put online, but especially on Amazon. You know, those keywords are the way that you're helping communicate to the algorithm what your product is, that you can make sure to rank well and index well and get in front of eyeballs. But that's only part of the equation, because then you really need the copy to be able to come in and communicate with your customers, help them understand why they should buy your product, and not just why they should buy your product, but what makes you special and different from the host of other potential options that exist out there on the Amazon marketplace. Because it's very rare that you type in a search term and have just a handful of results. Most of the time you're going to get tens, hundreds, even thousands of results of products that on the surface look quite similar, and maybe they even are quite similar. And so that's where the copy can come in and actually really help to set you apart, even if at a basic level you're selling exactly the same thing as a bunch of other competitors. So I kind of gave this away already, but what one thing can help you rank better organically, convert more traffic, lower customer acquisition costs, turn inventory more efficiently, minimize return rates, improve customer experiences, dominate the competition so much. Your listing should not be taken for granted, and it shouldn't be treated as an afterthought. So often I see people who they already have their product ordered and they're focused much more on all of the kind of product research and the other parts of the launch, and then they really treat the listing as the afterthought. But your listing is that one of the only pieces of content that you're able to create to communicate with your customers directly. And so it really does serve such a strong role in your ability to create a business that is going to be healthy, that can grow, and that can achieve the results that you're looking to achieve. And it's not just about conversions, right? So it is about things like making sure that you're matching with the right kind of customers, because there's no reason to make a sale only to have that person realize that the product isn't what they wanted, send it back. Now they're unhappy. They want to leave a negative review, and you're left with a used product that you need to figure out what to do with. So it's a lot of unnecessary hassle and loss to deal with returns that could be avoided by clear communication in your copy. So
yeah, and just a real quick comment on that, which I think is super powerful. And, I didn't think about this enough in certain circumstances, but I've got some technical products that I've been involved with. And again, it's better to be honest and clearly communicate at the risk of hurting your conversion rate a little bit, just to improve that customer experience. Because especially now, reviews are so difficult to get, and they're very difficult to overcome if you get negative reviews, that I think that a lot of people don't realize that conversion is the ultimate goal of a listing, but it's also setting expectations and clearly communicating an offer in alignment with what your customers are looking for. And there's no use selling them something that's not going to be a fit. They're going to return it. It's going to hurt your, IPX ratings. It's going to hurt your reviews, etc. So I think that's an awesome point that a lot of people don't talk about with listings.
I think we're in the same brain space right now, Adam, because
yeah.
I agree so much with what you're saying. And it's sort of like sometimes it's helpful to think about metaphors off of Amazon. So let's say that you have a dating profile and you say that you're 6 foot and actually you're 5'4". And so maybe that helps you get a lot of, approaches, but you're never going to be able to get in front of a person on a first date and convince them that you're not 6 feet. They're going to see that you were dishonest about that. And so the likelihood of having that be able to turn into a longer term relationship is much lower, because it's not just that you're not how you said you were going to be, but you were in some ways trying to be dishonest in order to manipulate them into doing something that they may not have wanted to do. And so the same thing applies to an Amazon listing, whereas, okay, yeah, maybe you make that sale, but if you're doing it at the expense of really clearly articulating what your product is, what it's great for, and maybe what it's not so great for, then it's a very lasting positive impact, and it can end up having a much stronger long-term negative outcome than you would have just not having had that sale. So, totally agree with you. So kind of a segue just to introduce myself a little bit. This is my husband, Aris. He's also my business partner. We started Marketing by Emma in 2016. So we've been doing this for over 5 years now. We've seen a lot of listings. We've seen the Amazon game change a lot. And so you also want to be really thoughtful when you are kind of figuring out how to do all of these different things, to make sure that you're really paying attention to the most up-to-date information, because Amazon is changing all of the time. And so techniques and tactics that people use even 6 months ago may now be a risky game to play and could put your listing at risk of getting suspended and other things like that. So really make sure that don't just take for granted what your competitors are doing to determine whether you can or cannot do something, but make sure that you're paying attention to courses like this, and also keeping up to date with Seller Central to make sure that you're not going out of bounds with things. So in thinking about a listing, each piece of the listing serves a different function. And your title is really key in helping you stand out in the search results. And it also has a strong SEO value as well. So your title is really sort of like that sign that you put up in front of your store that's saying, hey, you've come to the right place. Please step on in, or, in this case, click into my listing to learn more. So imagine you're a customer for a moment, and really this is something that you should be getting in the practice of doing throughout every stage of your business. So this isn't just an exercise to do right here, right now, but something to constantly be contemplating, to put yourself into the shoes of your customer and thinking about what their experience is going to be for each and every step of the journey. So you're a customer and maybe you're feeling a little crappy about yourself. It's been a long week. You look in the mirror, you're seeing some wrinkles that aren't making you super happy. So you go on Amazon and you search for wrinkle patches, okay? Which one do you choose? So let's just say we scroll down, we're past the sponsored ads, and we have the 4 top ranking organically listings to choose from here. Okay, so we have all different types of images. We have, I would say, roughly similar price points. There is a slight difference. One has far more reviews, so we're starting to see some differentiation here. But interestingly enough, the one that's in the top spot is Frownies. Even just looking at the title and the photos, it's really not super clear what it is that they're selling. Like when I look at this photo, especially with the color that they've chosen for this product, to me it looks like she's put Band-Aids on her forehead, which is just strange. She does look happy, so that's good. And then the box looks like a large eraser. The title is telling us Frownies, forehead, and between eyes. So it's something for that part of your face. And then there are 144 patches. But there's no more information there. So if I'm someone and all I'm looking at are reviews, sure, I'll click that one. If I'm someone that's more focused on price, then I might click the Blum Body, since that one has the lowest cost per patch. Or if I just really want to spend as little as possible, then I can go with Facial Smoothies Triangle. But there's sort of a lot happening here, and it's a little bit confusing as the customer to know what I'm even supposed to be comparing these to. What am I truly looking for? And the title can really help do that, because maybe I'm looking for something that is really customizable, so that regardless of the size of my face, I can use those. Maybe I don't have a lot of time in the morning, so I want this to be something that I can use overnight and it's long lasting. Maybe I have a really important meeting and I don't necessarily need this to be something that is going to have long-term results, but I want that instant lift. So there could be a lot of reasons why somebody's searching for a product like this. And the title's job is to help us say 2 things. 1, is this what I'm looking for? And then 2, why should I click into this one over any of the other ones? And so from a title perspective, you have the 24 karat gold. So that's a little bit intriguing and interesting if I don't have much information to go off of. Or I have the second in this set that has anti-wrinkle patches for smoothing eye, mouth, or forehead wrinkles. So that one is actually giving me the most concrete information, not just what this product is, but actually what it does and what I would use it for. So that's really helpful information. However, you might see the Frownies and say, okay, well, this is clear evidence. Title doesn't matter. All people care about is reviews. And sure, it's possible that many people just go right off of reviews, but Frownies has also had success off of Amazon. And so they're able to generate a lot of their own traffic, even if I'll show you in a minute some of the keyword research that I've done for this category, and they have a lot of branded searches, which means that people are going specifically to Amazon to search for this product. And so in some ways, they're a much easier sell. So this isn't an indication that this doesn't matter. In fact, when I look at this, I see, wow, what an opportunity they have to be able to do even better, and how much stronger could their business be if they wouldn't just rely on the recognition of their brand name and actually really build out an effectively written listing. So make the right type kind of sales. Look at that. A copywriter that has a typo in her slides. I need a little like slapping on my hand for that. So make the right kind of sales, the right customer, the right expectations, the right experience. This is something that we just spoke about very briefly, but it really is worth allowing to sink in. So who are you selling to? What kind of expectations are you creating with your customers? And then what is the actual experience that you're delivering? Ideally, you want your experience at the bare minimum to meet those expectations, if not exceed them. And so if you're setting those expectations really high and then you're not delivering on them, that's creating a gap for potential negative experience from the customer side. So that sale isn't really final until somebody decides to keep your product. Yes, when you make that initial buy now or add to cart and then purchase, you get that sale. But if it's not lasting, then it's sort of all for nothing. So what's missing when we look at this title and photo and everything like that? Like, what would you like to see as a customer if you're not just going on Amazon and looking for Frownies or looking for the highest reviewed product? First, let's start off by looking at the keywords a bit. So this isn't exhaustive keyword research. I just did some very preliminary keyword research to get a sense of what you might want to be considering to use as the foundations to create your title and your bullets and your description. And the first part of these keywords that I pulled up are what you would find if you pretty much just took the top highest search volume keywords and called it a day without really doing any extra homework, this is what I see people do all the time. Because, you look at these search volumes, 119,000, 104,000, those are exciting search numbers. Though, to get that many people to your page would be amazing. But the problem is that those are also incredibly high competition phrases, and they're very broad, general keywords that aren't necessarily having that same degree of buyer intent as something that more specifically describes this particular product or something that is relating to what somebody's trying to get or solve. Because people don't necessarily always know the exact right phrases to use to search. So sometimes they might use other types of language. Like an example of that is on the right-hand side, the fourth down, we have instant wrinkle remover for face. So that could have a lot of forms, and maybe they don't know that there are patches for this, or they're less concerned about the delivery. It's just that's the outcome that they're looking for. So you really want to make sure that when you're creating a keyword list to use to create your listing, that you're being thoughtful about things like relevancy and where you can be competitive, so that you're not just grabbing the highest search volume words and then putting together a listing that doesn't actually have the keywords that you can really gain traction on. You also want to keep an eye out for those keywords that may be too good to be true. So an example of this would be on the bottom of the right-hand side, we have Wander eye patches, which you might see that and not think anything of it, but I know that Wander is another beauty brand. And so if you looked at that and didn't do some extra digging as to why there are so few competitors indexing on that keyword, then you might assume, oh my gosh, I found a great opportunity, and unknowingly added a branded keyword of a competitor into your listing, which is definitely something that you should avoid doing. So really make sure that you're analyzing this list, and that's kind of the initial step to take when you're going about puzzling together a title. And I intentionally use the word puzzling because I do think of a title like a puzzle, because you have a lot of information that you need to sort of work together in a way that is cohesive, that doesn't look keyword stuffed, that's readable, that prioritizes the important information, and it all has to happen within a pretty narrow character count. So I guess this is appropriately themed photo given the fact that we are recording this just around Halloween, but keywords are the skeleton of your listing. And I really want you to internalize this. The skeleton means that they should not be visible to the naked eye. You really need to work your keywords into your listing in a way that they are giving a strong structure, but they are not taking away from the readability of your listing. They're not looking as though you're just creating this long string of phrases that's going to overwhelm the eyeballs. Instead, you want to thoughtfully weave these in so that they naturally appear within the copy of your text. So dress your keywords in important details. We have Frowny's back, right? Before we figure out what keywords we want to use, or maybe in tandem with this, let's think about some of the questions that we might want to consider. And I realize this is a long list of questions. These may not all be things that will have space to add, but really making a list of all of the things that you think a customer may need to know initially about your product in order to confidently click in is really important. And then you can go about ordering these by priority and determining, okay, this is all of that information that they may want or need to know, but what is the most important and how should I arrange this in the most valuable way? And additionally, don't be afraid to do A/B testing. So try different things out, see how people respond, and also know that whatever was working with your title one day might eventually change. So this is something just like any other part of your listing that you do want to be looking at with frequency to make sure that your keywords are still the most relevant and that what you've done is still helping you stand out from the competitors. Because the other piece of that is that when you do a really good job, you also can get a target on your back where you start to have copycats. And so in that case, even if you've done amazingly, if suddenly everybody's copying you, you may need to update things purely just to stay ahead of the curve and not just kind of be swallowed into the sea of sameness that can happen all too often on Amazon. So some questions that customers may want to know. On the most basic level, what is this? It is not telling us what this is. We also don't know what it does. There's no mention of wrinkles here. Why would someone want it? Very few keywords. What shape is it? That does seem to be a detail in looking at a lot of the other listings that is important to customers. Can it be used for anything else? So it specifies that this is for forehead and between eyes. Is it only something that I can use there, or can I also put it on my chest, my hands, my smile lines, around my eyes, or is it something that's really just meant for hardier forehead skin? And maybe even things like how long does it take to see results, ingredients. These are just some of the things that are kind of those initial questions, but there might be even more questions that you would want to be considering. So as an example of how you might want to puzzle this together, and again, I would want to do even deeper keyword research. I don't know enough about this product because their listing is so vague. So I would want to do also an even deeper dive into really getting a clear idea of what this product is, what it's made of, how it functions, what makes it unique. Then I might take an even different approach to this title, but at least as sort of a peripheral improvement based on some primary keyword research and a dissection of what they have on Amazon. This is how I might improve it. So I have this first part of the title, which is that phrase that helps to communicate what this product is. And if you see here, we also have some keywords fit in. And it's one of these kind of 2 or 3 for the price of 1 types of keywords. So I believe patches for wrinkles is 1 keyword, facial patches for wrinkles is another keyword, and Frowny's facial patches, I think, is a 3rd keyword. So we're getting actually a few keywords that we're covering within one go. So being able, and I'm just going to go backwards now, being able to analyze a list like this and look for where are those overlaps can help to make the list that you're working with a little bit less overwhelming, but it can also give you some insights into how can you include multiple keywords more efficiently without making it, again, just like that long string of keywords that can be really off-putting to a customer. So looking through here, and if your eyes don't naturally do this well, you can also use any spreadsheet tool and search for duplicates of things, and it'll highlight where else that phrase appears. So for example, maybe face wrinkle patches, maybe that's something that I feel like should appear somewhere else. It doesn't actually look like it does, but hypothetically speaking, if I wanted to see if it did, then I could search that, find where else it appears or doesn't appear, and then ideally use that longer tail phrase that includes the face wrinkle patches along with those other ones, and then there may be a few different combinations of things. So going back to this, I've also offset that first part of the phrase with a dash. That helps to make this both more readable, but it can also encourage the creation of a canonical URL that then makes this listing better optimized for off Amazon searches, so that when people are searching on places like Google, then you're able to increase the likelihood of appearing on those search engines as well, which can be really great for off Amazon traffic. So it's not something to discount. Some other details that I added in here, along with a lot of additional keywords, I added instant. By the way, the orange highlight, those are all keywords that I've added in. So some of them are partial keywords, some of them are more complete keywords, but that's a lot of keywords where before we just had a handful. So instant, that seemed like something that would be really attractive and exciting to know, that it's not something that you're going to have to use for 30 days and then you're looking in the mirror and saying, maybe I think this has helped a little bit. Customizable, so the fact that these are the triangles and you can make them fit, whatever shape or space that you need them to. Then talking about where to use them, so forehead, wrinkle, and smile lines treatment. And then the fact that they're overnight, anti-aging, face lifting masks. So really thinking about how can we use that keyword list in an effective way while including as much valuable information as possible so that people get that information that they need to know while you're still making sure that you're taking advantage of this space for SEO opportunities. So drive clicks with a killer title. Think about that need to know information. Another point that we haven't discussed yet is mobile versus desktop. And whether you're on mobile or desktop, oftentimes your title will truncate to around 60 to 90 characters. And so you want to be thoughtful of putting the most important information towards the beginning so that even if it does shorten, even if Amazon does shorten the title, customers still have access to that more important information. Considering key differentiators, so when you are a customer and you're looking at a page full of search results, one of the things that's going to help you feel confident clicking in, or maybe even just catch your eye, is something that's different rather than just doing what everybody else is doing, which I understand there's a big temptation to do that. But when you just copycat your competitors, you really are diluting your ability to communicate more effectively with your customers. considering the canonical URL like we just discussed, break up phrases with dashes for readability. It really will make it much more customer friendly to do that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the titles are like puzzles. So it may take some moving around until you figure out where the best place for everything goes. So sometimes I feel like I really want to use this keyword phrase, but I'm not sure exactly how to fit it in. So I'll copy it, and then I'll move it somewhere else, and then I'll move it somewhere else. And then finally, I find a way for it to all flow more naturally. But have patience with it. Though you have a small space, no more than 200 characters in most categories, some categories even less, it is something that can seemingly be quite simple, but there are so many different things that you're needing to juggle that there is a much greater complexity than what you might initially think. So we've gotten them to click into the listing. Now we really need to make sure that our bullets are doing a good job of making sure that the customer is staying on the page. So that means a few things. It means giving them that information that they just need to know about your product. And then in addition to that, going that extra step to start really getting them excited and interested in wanting to get your product for themselves or for a gift or for whatever reason it is that they are buying this product. So we're going to stick with Frownies, and now we're going to go into their listing. They're only using 3 of the 5 bullets. So right off the bat, that's just a huge missed opportunity. What are some other issues that we see here? There's misspelling and anti-wrinkle trait for forehead and between eyes. Targets the cause of wrinkles between the eyes and horizontal forehead wrinkles. So that pretty much is just reiterating what the first bullet said, and both don't really give us any indication of how it does that, how long it takes to do that, or why you would want to do that. And then it says, enables skin to breathe and maintain normal restoration at night, which this just feels really like an enigma, because I don't understand if what it's saying is that it's just helping the skin do what it would just naturally do anyway, or if it's suggesting that unlike a lot of the competitors, this one won't interfere with the skin's natural rejuvenation that it undergoes. I also don't know if that's disturbing. My neighbor has an incredibly loud vehicle that is poorly timed with its exit, so I'm not.
I actually couldn't hear it, so I think we're good.
Okay, cool. So let's go back to this keyword list here. So all of the keywords that I've included are what we've already utilized in the title. So now we want to think about what are other valuable keywords that we're wanting to fit into the bullets in, again, a thoughtful way. So perhaps we're going to look for some of those 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 types of keywords that can help us really maximize the space that we have in an effective way. So like some kind of combinations that instantly jump out at me is we have wrinkle patches at the bottom of the left-hand side, and the wrinkle patches is a root phrase that's found in a lot of others. So we have face wrinkle patches, facial wrinkle patches, we have anti-wrinkle patches, and that might be it, but that's a lot. So we have plenty to choose from there. So some of this might be, how do I want to approach the particular bullet that I'm writing, or what's the topic that I'm choosing, or how can I just make the keyword fit into the sentence that I want to fit it into. So I might not fully commit to the exact combination that I want to use at this point, because I don't want to allow the keyword to drive the content. Instead, I'd rather like to have a really solid idea of what I would like to focus this bullet on, and then find a combination of keywords that I can integrate in a way that's going to not take away from the effectiveness of the bullet. So the first bullet, an anti-wrinkle treatment for forehead and between eyes. So your first bullet should do a couple of things. It should both communicate what your product is, so very similarly to what the title is supposed to do, but ideally it should also go that extra step in communicating the key benefit of your product. So why does someone want this? Not just on the surface level, but what are those deeper emotional drivers that would encourage someone to go online in the first place? And those could be a number of different things, even for just one product. So you're going to need to be clear about what is the position that you're taking and how do you want to present your product and your brand in a way that is perhaps going to set it apart from everybody else, or is something that's going to be just a different spin on things that's more of the same. So again, I don't have a lot of information to go off of from Frownies. They're very minimal on their listing. And so this is me taking the little bit of information that I've gathered to write a more effective bullet than what we have here. So I'm doing a few different things with this. First of all, I have a little header that I've created for this bullet. In this case, it's Rest Wrinkles Away. And those headers can be really helpful in indicating to customers what each bullet point is about. So let's say that one of these bullets, I want to address the ingredients. So if I have a little header that talks about something to do with the formulation or the all-star ingredients or you name it, then that is going to make it really easy for me as a customer, for my eyeballs to find where to go to get that information, because maybe my skin is sensitive to silicones, or I only use products that are cruelty-free, or any number of different things like that. Those are going to be really important criteria for me as a customer to find and check off before I'm going to invest more time and effort to determine whether this is a product that I want to purchase. So those headers are really helpful, and then I've offset that with a dash. And then we go on to the rest of the bullet. So reveal a more youthful you overnight. So this is one sentence that it's pretty short, but it is achieving a lot of things. So we're talking about that deeper emotional benefit of it. So, the rediscovery of youth and feeling like you look good and you're confident with how you look. But it's also speaking to how this product functions. So it says overnight, meaning this is something that you can put on before you go to bed. So it's talking about when you would utilize it. And it's also suggesting that it's fast acting. So it's not something that you're going to have to wait a long time to see results from. So just apply Frownies facial wrinkle patches. So utilizing that the combination of those two keyword phrases that I spoke about before bed, and wake up to instantly firmer, smoother skin. So really helping people to identify with what that after picture is going to be like. So what kind of confidence will they be able to wake up with when they look younger in the mirror with firmer, smoother skin? And maybe this is just this approach that this company wants to take when it comes to communicating about wrinkles, and maybe somebody else wants to take a very different approach. Maybe they don't want to put this aiming to recapture your youth, because they really embrace the wisdom and maturity that comes with age, but it's really more about having makeup lay smoother on your skin, or just feeling more confident when you get on a Zoom call. So even just this one concept can be looked at through a different lens. And so what's going to impact that? Your customer avatar is going to impact that. The choices that you're taking to really brand yourself are also going to impact that. And so you want to be having both of those things in mind so that you're really able to facilitate an impactful conversation between you, the brand, and your customers. And you might be saying, conversation, what are you talking about? They're just kind of skimming a listing. How are you facilitating a conversation? But really good copy does just that. Where when you see that, maybe just in your mind, you're kind of saying like, yeah, that sounds great, or something similar. And maybe you don't even hear that internal dialogue, but it is in fact happening. And so the more that you can increase that engagement, the higher likelihood that not only are they going to be more excited to buy your product, but it also means that they're going to be more focused on what you're telling them and showing them, so that their attention isn't wandering and getting distracted by the competitors that are advertising on your page, or the 20 other tabs that they have open on their computer, or the text message that's coming through. It's not just on Amazon that you even have to be worried about attention. It really is that people are constantly getting bombarded from all different angles with plenty of things that are eager to take their attention away. And so that's why doing this right is so important, because you have such a limited amount of time and such a thin attention span that you really want to make sure that you are addressing all of those things that you need to, and doing so in a way that's not going to allow their minds to wander. And so it's not just about what you write, it's even how long you write. So if you have these really gigantic bullets, if you're like, you know what, I'm going to max out my character count, I can get away with 500 characters per bullet, so why wouldn't I do that? I can tell you right now that nobody wants to read 5 hefty paragraphs as bullet points, including myself, and I read almost anything. I see bullets that are that long, my eyes glaze over, and I say, no, that's too much, that's too overwhelming, I'm not into it. So you want to be very thoughtful when you're writing your bullets and make sure, is this helping to either achieve the addition of a keyword that's helping my SEO strategy, or helping to push the sale forward. And if it's not doing either of those two things, then it's really probably better that you leave it out, or you save that phrase for some other part of your listing or your website or social media or what have you. You don't have to delete it, but maybe just put it in a saved document somewhere else that you can go back to when you need inspiration or ideas for something else you're working on. So don't leave them guessing. Things to consider: spelling, grammar, and errors. Big no-no. That's just eroding trust right off the bat. How am I supposed to feel confident that this is going to be good for my skin if they haven't even taken a little bit of extra time to make sure that this is spelled properly? We're not even talking good content at this point, but just basic attention to detail really does show whether this is something that you care about, you take pride in how you present yourself, or is this maybe an indication that you are a company that just cares about making the sale and you're not really interested in anything more than that, including the customer experience. So definitely communicating what is the product. Again, just like the title, super important. How does it work? Why would someone want to use this? What problems does it solve? How does this compare / what makes it different or better than the competitors? Also, where's the customer? So there's nothing here that really addresses the customer's desires, needs, experience, or anything like that. And so it's really missing out on an opportunity for connection. Also, just really important details like ingredients. Those types of things, while they might not be always the most exciting selling point, could be really critical details for a customer to be able to make a confident purchase with a product. So for example, my skin is sensitive to silicone. So that means that whenever I'm buying a facial moisturizer or a serum or a face wash or an item of makeup, I read the ingredient list to make sure. But it's so much nicer when I can just look at a bullet and it says, no silicones, this, that, or the other. And so if you understand that something like that is a common concern for customers, and you've gone the extra step to create your product in a way that doesn't feature that or does feature something else, then making sure that you make that easy for customers to find can really make a huge difference in making sure that you're maximizing your conversion potential. So to start to wrap this up, I want to go over a few quick fixes that you can do. So first and foremost, naturally, when you're writing a listing, or really anything, it's very common to formulate sentences in ways of saying, our product does this. The wrinkle patches work in this way. We crafted our wrinkle patches to this. And a little bit of that language is okay. But so often, if you are looking at a listing, you'll see that every single sentence is starting with one of those words. And it's taking this approach of really putting the focus on you when the focus should be on the customer. So often you can either just eliminate that word and rephrase the sentence slightly, or even just kind of flip the order of the sentence. So it's not to say that it shouldn't include those words at all, but really being thoughtful about where you're putting the focus of the sentence and making sure that the customer is as central to the conversation as possible. Using active language can also be really, really worthwhile, both because it will naturally make your sentences shorter, but also it keeps that energy up. So what do I mean by active language? Let's just take a look at an example. So rust wrinkles away. So I have a commanding verb there, rust wrinkles away. Reveal a more youthful you overnight. Again, that's a very active sentence. Wake up to instantly firmer, smoother skin. So you're using a commanding verb in a way that the you is implied, and it is having a much kind of higher energy impact than if we were to say, you can use these wrinkles before you go to bed and wake up looking more youthful. Or the wrinkle patches, when used overnight, will help you look younger. So you see that those sentences, they're saying the same thing, but they're far wordier, they're far more winding, and they're less, they have less ability to even just communicate the idea in a straightforward way. Flip the order of your sentences. So benefits lead to features. It is, again, if we're just talking about how you would naturally write something, a lot of times you're going to do the reverse. So you're probably going to say something like, this is made with stainless steel because it reinforces this other thing. I don't even know what kind of product I'm thinking about when I'm giving this example. But if you were to flip the order and say, extra strong and ultra reliable because it's reinforced with stainless steel, then you go back to thinking about how can you make this sentence higher energy, more engaging, more interesting. So you're still doing all those things. It's not ignoring the important features, but it's just communicating around them in a different way that makes it more interesting and attention grabbing to the customer. Get organized. That's not necessarily the most exciting of tips to give you, but it is something that people don't consider on a regular basis. And I mean this both within the entire structure of the listing, but I also mean this within each section of the listing. So when you're putting together your bullets, for example, and you have 5 bullets, so you should think of your 5 main points that you want to cover in those bullets, and then really keep each bullet focused on that point. You don't want to be combining too many other ideas into one bullet, because then what happens is, let's say that second idea that you added on to the end of the 3rd bullet, maybe that's really important information for somebody, but how will they know to look for it at the end of the 3rd bullet? It's not where they would want to go. So this is where you might need to be a little bit ruthless in thinking about, okay, what is truly important to know at this particular point? And then how can I communicate this in a way that is going to really help people feel confident in understanding this product fully? And then perhaps this other piece of information, yes, it's important, but it's not as important. It's something that people might want to know a little bit later on. So is this something that I can put in the A+ content? Is this something that would actually be better communicated in an infographic? Or maybe this isn't even a piece of information that a customer needs to know at the time of purchase. Maybe this is something that should be included in an insert or an email or on a website, where for those that are going to look for that additional information, it will be easy for them to find, but it's not really factoring into their purchasing decision. Spelling grammar check, we spoke about how important that is. There are tools like Grammarly that you can use. I would also encourage you, whenever you're putting something online to represent your business, that you have another set of eyes read it. And just make sure that you didn't miss anything, because it's also really easy when we're reading our own writing to assume that people will understand the tone that we're going for and read it that way in our minds, even if it's not really the case, or we'll just kind of skip over certain errors and correct them and not even see them on the page. If you don't have somebody to read what it is that you've written, then what you can do is at least read your own writing out loud. I do that for pretty much everything that I write. And I find that a lot of times that helps me identify places that are awkward, where the flow might be a little bit off, where the word that I've chosen is strange, where something might not be as clear as I thought it was. So that can be a really helpful way to also find some of those errors if you are either strapped for time or don't have access to other people to help. Go the Goldilocks route. What do I mean by that? Not too much, not too little. So you don't want to go the extreme of Fownies and just leaving a bunch to be desired. That's the too little route. But you also don't want to give an overabundance of information so that people are just flooded and don't even know how to navigate your listing or find the important information. So really finding that sweet spot in between, where you're keeping things concise, where you're keeping things impactful, and where you're including the information where it should belong. So for bullets, we like to aim to keep each bullet at around 200 characters max. And that's a really helpful guideline to follow, because 200 characters is short enough that you're really going to have to consider each and every word that you're using and make sure that it fits there. And sometimes you might need to do some extra carving to create those extra 5 characters you need to make it fit. And so it will give that extra bit of oversight to make sure that you're not just getting a little bit long-winded. Highlight key information, so making sure that it's really easy to find the information that people need to know. That could be through the usage of headers and the bullets. That could also be done with things like infographics. So considering what are those things that might be easier to understand visually, or those points that are actually just really, really important. And so yes, they're in the bullets, but also can you put them in the product images so that regardless of what point somebody's looking at your listing, they're able to consume that information in a meaningful way. And so adding text to your images, really, that is one of the most underutilized pieces of Amazon real estate. So I would strongly, strongly encourage you to consider thinking about how you can utilize your product images, not just to have great lifestyle photos, but to think about, what am I really trying to show with this photo? And then how can I incorporate a little bit of text to make sure that I am actually communicating that message that I'm wanting to say? And then this is sort of like the kind of deeper level stuff that we are really trying to aim for. And it's not necessarily something that you would do after all of this. Ideally, these are actually things that you are considering and thinking about before you even sit down to write a listing. Because if you can actually have a really clear idea of who your ideal customer is and envision them sitting there, then it will actually make it much easier to write your listing, because you're not just writing to a blank screen, you're actually writing to a person. And we all have that natural ability to be able to sort of read the other person when we're having a conversation and understand, oh, okay, they seem like this might not be important to them, or this is something that they're really excited about, or this is something that I know that they love their dog. So even though this product isn't about dogs per se, I'm going to find a way to kind of incorporate some little piece that speaks to that, because I know that it will make them really feel seen and understood. And so we do those things in person, and it can be much more challenging to replicate those online. But by doing this deeper dive, you are able to connect in with some of those things, and it will hopefully also just make it a more enjoyable exercise. So connect with your customers by identifying with their interests, again, beyond just the product. So if we're talking about wrinkle patches, I mean, really anybody could buy a wrinkle patch and use it. And so you want to be clear about who is your target customer. It's not anybody. It is a specific group of people. And so maybe it is my demographic. So maybe it's, millennials. They're in their 30s, they're in their careers, maybe some of them are having families, they're starting to feel like a little bit old, like their 20s are in their past, and they're not as excited to look in the mirror in the morning because they're noticing those wrinkles start to form. And so in that case, that's a very different type of customer than somebody who is 60 years old. The wrinkles are formed. They're not really expecting that any topical treatment like this is going to get rid of them. And they have different concerns. They have different cultural reference points. They have different types of language they use. And so being clear about who you're selling to more specifically, not just on age, but also based on interests and the concerns they have, can really make a difference in establishing a more meaningful relationship and line of communication with your customer. And so on the flip side, you also want to be asking those same questions about your brand. So who is your brand? What kind of voice should you be communicating with? Do you want to be communicating with? Use story and really make sure that whatever you're saying, that there's substance behind it. So you don't want to say, oh yeah, we're committed to sustainability, because you see everyone talking about how much they, care about saving the planet. If your products aren't really fulfilling the expectations of what a sustainable company looks like, then you should maybe consider whether it's going to be helpful to incorporate that, or whether the people that really care about that will see through it, see it as you really just trying to get them to buy their product, and then actually be turned off by it. So in general, I would encourage you to avoid trendy marketing lingo, and understand whether it is truly relevant to what you're trying to do, or whether it's just kind of like a trick that works sometimes, but may actually diminish the impact of your efforts. So it's not to say don't use it, but use it thoughtfully and with consideration for both your customer that you're selling to and how you want to represent your business as a brand. And then I am happy to offer a free listing analysis, because I know that this was a lot and we didn't even get into product descriptions or A+ content. So if you're just like, oh my gosh, I have no idea if my listing is great or terrible, we would be happy to offer a free listing analysis. Just go to marketingbyemma.com/Adam or scan this QR code, and we'll follow up with some free insights of things that you can either take and do yourself, or if you would prefer to have our help, we are always happy to help as well. And then here are our contact details. If you have any questions, again, we're always happy to help in any way that we can.
Emma, that was so good. I mean, there's so many nuggets there. It's I've got a brand that we haven't really done a ton of tweaking the listings in like 18 months. And looking back on them now, I'm like, man, we got to like refresh these things. So you guys are going to help us refresh them as well as do some new products. But like there's just so many nuggets in there, like starting with we or your product or our, those things are just so spot on. And like, none of this stuff is rocket science, and a lot of it's incremental, and it's not like this like insane thing, but a lot of this common sense stuff, starting with the customer first, weaving things together. Anyway, I was blown away, and I think that what you guys do is super interesting, how you fuse the science and art of things. And again, if you could do it on your own, and you guys can, you got to be kind of smart with your money when you're launching products and picking and choosing where you spend money. But I can tell you, bringing in the pros to do something inexpensively, when you think about conversion rate, if you can get a conversion rate from 15 to 19%, that additional 4% conversion, if you added that up over all the sessions you get in a month, in a quarter, in a year, we're talking about substantial amounts of money that this stuff plays into. So, anyway, I respect the heck out of you and what you guys do, and it was so awesome for you to kind of impart some of your trade secrets to our group. If they want to do it their own, that's awesome, and it's cool that you opened up kind of a free listing analysis too. So thank you so much for taking an hour of your time. It really means a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I would just say, we started this whole conversation off by saying it's really easy to kind of neglect this and just sort of throw something up. But you do want to make sure, even if you're doing it yourself, make the time to do it right when you're launching your product, because you do get that honeymoon period. And so being able to really take advantage of that and then build off of the traction and momentum that you're able to create from that is so important. So you can definitely do it yourself if you want to, but just really be thoughtful about how can you make sure that you're giving your product the best chance at success.
Yeah. And I think your point of like having somebody else read it or reading it aloud is really important. The other thing I would say too is you don't need to do this like, okay, today's my listing day, so I'm going to knock out the entire listing. Like, do the keyword research, spend a day doing that, be thoughtful about it. Spend 2 hours on the title. I mean, it's a to your point, a puzzle exercise, and you're going to burn a lot of brain cells doing it, and you're going to get fatigued. And so I think the worst thing that people can do is they try to knock it all out in one fell swoop. And by bullet 2, they're like, man, I'm done. I'm just going to you're going to be lazy at that point. You're just going to just to get the exercise done. So compartmentalize it, eat the elephant a bite at a time. Because that kind of effort, I do fundamentally believe, in addition to having a good offer, if you don't have a good offer, you're kind of screwed. But if you have a good offer and you're thoughtful about piecing this together and doing the puzzle right, the amount of leverage that comes from that activity, given all the eyeballs that are going to see it over the course of the next year for your listing, plus it's compounding benefit and plays a huge role in success for Amazon.
Totally. So. And I love that idea of like breaking it up into pieces and then also being able to walk away from it, because even when we're not actively thinking about something, our brains are still continuing to process and work through things. Like, that epiphany in the shower is such a real thing. There are so many times that I've been stuck on a sentence. I've gone and done something else, and then like I'm walking my dog and I'm like, that's it. That's the word that I was looking for. And so like being able to put it down can actually make it both more enjoyable because you're not just destroying yourself, but can also create space for that creativity to really come and work in your brain to do what it does best. There's also, I wish I remembered the name of it, but I saw there's this free tool where you can put the text into the site and it'll have a robot read it to you. And what's awesome about that is it totally takes out all tone. So, because like, it's like think about a text message. Like somebody can text you sure, which can mean awesome, or like, oh my gosh, they're so mad at me, or, they're indifferent. Like, depending on what your headspace is, you could read it in all 3 ways. And so that same thing can happen with anything else you write, where you might be assuming that people are going to read it this way. And so having something that it has removed all of that, intentional tone from it could be an interesting exercise. I haven't personally used it, but I'm very intrigued by it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, again, we've taken up enough of your time, and I really appreciate it. Maybe this is kind of one of many. Maybe we'll weave in some more of your wisdom into content in the years ahead. But appreciate like dropping these value bombs. I think it's going to impact a lot of people in terms of how they create their listing. And so thanks so much for your time, and appreciate it.
Thank you.